there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, there's something inherently unpleasant about this information. So there's an inherent resistance in the public, quote unquote, to it. So they're already automatically inclined to want to disbelieve that. So if there's a narrative out there that says nothing to see here, it's all just mass hysteria, they're going to be temperamentally more attracted to that narrative. That's number one obstacle. The second one is that there actually is an awful lot out there, and an awful lot of people who are talking about satanic rituals and all the rest of it, but they're definitely not reputable. So whether it's Alex Jones or whether it's David Icke or countless other websites, some of which are valid and some of which are by survivors themselves, but I think survivors are often confused, obviously, by the trauma, but also they may have been implanted with false memories and false interpretations that are deliberately there to discredit their testimonies. So it's a very poisonous well. And because of that, the mainstream media, and I've been struggling with this for years, associates these narratives with something disreputable, something salacious, something sensationalist, something that's been discredited and so on, or something right-wing, right?
I think that's true, but you know, like the sexual abuse in the Catholic Church receives plenty of publicity now. I was just listening to the radio this morning, and there was a presentation there on the Current about the Catholic Church in BC and how many they were now releasing information about how many priests had been found credibly guilty of sexual abuse and what was done with those priests, and people want to know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is really not any different. The satanic trappings are not that different. In fact, one of my first clients and somebody who wrote an important piece for my book was actually the way she got into therapy was because she was abused by a priest who happened to also be a member of the Satanist group. And so she started to remember more than what that priest had done to her. All these things are connected. And I think people are very interested in finding out about organized sexual abuse, because really the satanic stuff is part of organized sexual abuse. And it happens in institutions, it happens in schools, it happens in a lot of places. And this is only part of it. And if we put it in its proper context as part of organized abuse, and perhaps people are willing to listen and find this out.
Well, it's ironic that it's okay to talk about religious or Catholic abuse, and it's not okay to talk about satanic abuse.
Yes, that's true. One thing I read said that, it's amazing. Satanists is the only religion here that don't abuse their kids.
Yeah. Right. And they're protected. They're more protected than Christians now because they're a minority. It's all got tangled up with identity politics.
Yes.
You identify as a Satanist, then you're this minority that somehow needs their rights need protecting. The other thing, though, is that Catholic sexual abuse, although I'm sure it's still going on, is seen as something in the past and something that belongs to these old, outdated patriarchal institutions that the mainstream dominant narrative is all about. Overthrowing that, whereas Satanism somehow has managed to coattail on identity politics as something new and progressive. And much more deeply, the problem is if you start to look at this organized child abuse, it's not going to be like with the Catholic Church. It's not contained by one institution. It's cross-institutional. It's in academia, it's in the military, it's in the government, it's in the entertainment industry. So
that's right, absolutely. I think, what did the Satanic Temple Grey Faction object to in my writings? I think there's two essential things. One is that I showed how organized perpetrator groups utilize children's capacity to dissociate to actually create structured personality systems. And I also showed how a therapist can work with these structured personality systems to undo all the training that they have given to these children. Because this is very sophisticated abuse. And I have talked about how sophisticated it is. And that is what these organized abuser groups don't want anybody to know, that there's a sophisticated abuse. It's not just some guy who likes to hurt little kids. It's very sophisticated. They teach one another how to do this, and they utilize dissociation.
I mean, the other thing, obviously, that they're attacking you for is you're claiming that that the abuse of children has this satanic element.
Yes.
Correlating those two things. And it occurs to me that because one of the ways that the satanic element is incorporated into this organized abuse, I believe, isn't just to terrorize the children, but also to discredit their memories, to make their memories seem unbelievable.
Yes, definitely.
And it's very effective. Yeah.
That's right. That was my second point, because I talk about the deception. In fact, many of the specific points in Evan Anderson's complaint about me are my points about deception, that people dress up in Satan suits to hurt little kids, for example. You know, I am never saying Satan came and inhabited somebody and did these awful things and that children are possessed by the devil. Just the opposite. I am talking about human beings dressing up in costumes as part of the abuse they do. It terrorizes the little kids and it makes the narrative seem unbelievable. This is what the abuser groups do not want people to know.
It's a slight change of track, but I wanted to mention it. Did you follow the Jeffrey Epstein stories at all?
To some extent, yes. Yeah.
Because I think that's an example. I mean, with Virginia Roberts being a sex slave, not that young an age, but she also was abused as a child. I haven't looked into it, but it seems as though that's an example of something that is out there in the mainstream media, so everybody knows about it, which is very close. It correlates very closely with the kind of things that survivors are testifying to.
Well, the Epstein case, yes, and then you look at his associates. One of them, you know, has been mentioned to me by a client.
Right.
You know, yeah, actually more than one of them, come to think of it. Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I already knew about these people. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know it would ever come to public light. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, my impression more talking to you is that the Grey faction, to bring it back to that can of worms, as a kind of paper tiger. I think that they're attempting and somewhat successful at creating an appearance that they have more credibility than they have, that they have more sway than they have, and that the people are actually on board with what they're saying. Actually, their arguments and their position is very tenuous, I think, and very easy to discredit. I doubt that they would talk to me, even if I was willing to talk to them, but maybe they would. But I mean, for example, if one ever did get in a debate with them about these things, there are so many factual case studies, so much evidence one could just present to them with a question mark that would neutralize what they're saying. As in, you're saying this is ridiculous and absurd. Well, what about Jeffrey Epstein and Virginia Roberts? You know, or what about Jimmy Savile? Or what about what we know about organized child trafficking and the pedophilia in the Pentagon? I mean, just so many different cases.
You can't present it to them because you know what they're going to say, because they're a lobbying group. You know, they have a particular agenda. They're not going to listen.
Right, but that would expose the agenda, is what I'm saying. Because if they don't have an argument, they can't say, "Oh, that's all mass hysteria about Jeffrey Epstein."
No, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right.
It actually isn't mass hysteria. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's smoke and mirrors. They're using smoke and mirrors.
They are using smoke and mirrors. That's right, and they don't have any credibility as experts in the field of recovered memory or anything like that. They don't know a thing about it. So, yeah.
No, and I think they're exploiting the nature of the phenomenon and the difficulty people have with understanding it. They're using that as a way to flame disbelief.
Yes.
I think.
Certainly they are. Yeah.
Because something that is little understood, it's very easy to misrepresent, and then it's very easy to mock it and deride it.
Yes. True enough.
So anyway, I mean, they created an opportunity for us to have a conversation, and so what they say, you know, the adversary actually serves a function because he galvanizes us into action.
Less or more, I am not so sure, but I guess the wisdom of my senses will explore and then assess the score.